Pop-Up TV, and today we're doing a non-spoiler review of DC's newest superhero movie, The Flash. Now, before we start, don't forget to like and subscribe, okay? There's going to be new content weekly, so also make sure you set that notification. The Flash, directed by Andy Muschietti and written by Christina Hodson. Development on an official Flash film goes as far back as the 1980s. So for decades, DC and WB have been fine-tuning their DCEU. And as the Snyderverse faction of this extended universe comes to a close, we are finally gifted the solo adventure of one of DC's most popular heroes. And the end result is that it's not bad. It's good, but it could have been better. Alright, so first of all, we'll talk about the visuals. In my opinion, this is visually the most pleasing DC movie I've seen in a while. Andy Muschietti, the director of both It Chapter 1 and 2, is no stranger when it comes to weird imagery and strange visuals and certain elements of horror. So a lot of that popped up here. Some of the things we see on screen in this movie are unbelievable, to say the least. Now, most of this does come on behalf of some pretty heavy CGI, maybe a little bit too much, but for certain scenes I do think it was justified. I'm not going to get into any specifics, but the scenes when Flash is in the Speed Force or the Speed Sphere, I've seen a lot of complaints about it, but I feel like they did what they had to do as far as making it look as real as something like that could. But it does become overwhelming visually and not in a good way. But when Flash is doing his thing and he's traveling, so to speak, it's pretty jaw-dropping. There's a scene in this movie involving babies, and although it was a CGI fest, the way it was set up just blew my mind. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but if you've seen the trailer, then you basically get what's going on with the story. A modern day Barry Allen, aka The Flash, still distraught over the murder of his mother and the wrongful incarceration of his father, literally runs back in time to change the course of those events and must now deal with the very strange consequences, including a 10-year younger Flash. Now, if like me, you're fresh off of seeing Across the Spider-Verse like 2 weeks ago, then you kind of know where all of this is going. Just like Spider-Man 2099 warned Miles in the trailer for that film, here we have Batfleck Bruce Wayne warning Flash that there can be some pretty bad consequences to messing with time and the multiverse. For me, where the story lacks in having a real villain, it makes up for in its emotional stakes, its pacing, the adventure sense of it. You kind of feel like you're watching a comic book. And some of the fan services, because speaking of surprises, Michael Shannon must have been offered a pretty heavy check to reprise his role as Zod here, because he does nothing. He's of no use here. He's just there. I mean, Supergirl beats him up a lot, and it's cool to see that. But now Supergirl, she is one of the highlights of the film, in my opinion. I think her presence here and her action scenes have actually been even better than the last few times we've seen the DCEU Superman, as far as actual hand-to-hand combat and choreography, which is good. And finally, the main selling point of the movie, the original Michael Keaton Batman. Now, this honestly half worked for me. It worked sometimes it didn't. Michael Keaton is great in the role, of course, but I didn't feel that this Batman in specific did anything for the story. In fact, the entire second act begins to feel more like an action-packed Justice League movie than it does a Flash movie. And most of that is because of the very extensive action sequences with both Batman and Supergirl. Now, is this the best superhero movie of all time? No, unfortunately, James Gunn, it is not. It's a little bit overhyped, and it doesn't exactly live up to all of the expectations, and I think that makes it easy to disagree with anyone who says that it is. But I would entertain the argument that it's in the top 5 DCEU movies of all time, maybe. Yeah, I'd say that. The only real complaint I have about The Flash is the sad attempt at a love story or connection between Barry and Iris. This was played as a joke. In contrast to that, though, Barry's co-workers, Patty and Albert, are great small characters, or side characters, I guess. They have a scene in young Barry's apartment that I really liked. Also, Ezra Miller once again proves that they are the only person that can play Barry Allen this way, and I hope we get to see them play the role again in the James Gunn DC universe. So, an emotionally relatable story, some outstanding visuals, and a crazy third act, to me makes The Flash well worth seeing at least more than once. Maybe twice, at least twice. It may not be the greatest superhero film, even of this year, but it is one of the greatest in the history between DC and Warner Brothers. I'd probably give it a 4 out of 5.